for Ukraine, this is about maintaining their strategic bombing, if you will, which is the strikes on their oil and gas platform, continue their efforts to make Crimea, the decisive terrain of this war, uninhabitable and unusable for the Russian Navy, Air Force, and Army. Doing that exactly as they did when they had the first British Storm Shadows were used to destroy the Ukrainian dry dock in Sevastopol and the Black Sea Fleet headquarters in Sevastopol, where they proved the concept of making Crimea untenable with long-range precision weapons. The Black Sea Fleet is evacuating there. So I think they're going to continue the pressure on Crimea, both in terms of making it untenable, that's the right word, for the Russians, but also isolating it by going after the railroad that connects Crimea back to Russia, continuing to destroy ships that would be used to move stuff across Azov Sea to Crimea. And then, of course, eventually that big bridge is going to go down when the Ukrainians are ready for it to go down. That's going to continue. But in order to launch a counterstrike, they're going to have to become very, very confident and comfortable and experienced with air power, which, they're going to see an increase in air power. I don't know how much or exactly when, but over the next coming months, we'll see that. The Ukrainians will grow their ability. They already know how to fly very well, but fighting F-16s in operations is different from just being able to fly the aircraft. So that'll be part of it. I'm sure they won't try some sort of counterstrike or counteroffensive until they have mastered the air-ground teamwork required, which they did not do last year. But also, they've got to grow the size of the army. They don't have a people problem. There's probably 2 million women and men that are military age that could be in uniform, but they started slow in developing the infrastructure required for recruiting and training new units. That's got to happen. And I think that's feasible that they could have several more brigades that are properly equipped and trained by the end of this year. And so then now you're starting to talk about having the conditions right for a successful counterattack.
It's a really interesting point you raised there about manpower. And of course, Russia, given its population is so much bigger, has an advantage in that sense. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on the Russian casualty rate. I mean, the Ukrainian General Staff claimed last week that Russia had suffered more than 1,000 casualties in a day. And there are reports, meanwhile, that Russia is forcibly sending troops with serious medical issues to the front line, that is trying to militarize deported Ukrainian youth. How sustainable is the Russian casualty rate?
Actually, I don't think what they're doing is sustainable beyond next year. Yes, they have a population that's 3 times the size of Ukraine, but it's well known that this is not a healthy population. And you have a hard time finding too many Russians that actually want to join the army and come into Ukraine. They know what happens. Now, the Russians also know, the Kremlin knows that this is not sustainable. That's why they have avoided recruiting heavily from Moscow and St. Petersburg, because they don't want a bunch of funerals happening in those cities. Instead, the funerals tend to happen out in the poorer regions of the Russian Federation, central and eastern Russia, where people are willing to take the bonus of money if they join the military. And, the Kremlin doesn't care about those casualties. But I don't think that they can maintain their industry and an army of the size that they need, given the casualties they're suffering. It's now more profitable for a man to leave his job at the tank factory and join the army. He gets more money if he does that. So their manpower shortage is also being felt on the industry side. So the pressure won't be because mothers are out there wailing away at their sons and husbands being killed, as what happened in Afghanistan. It'll be because they just can't keep it up. And I think that part of our effort should be to help reach the Russian population somehow, conducting information operations and or making them feel the impact of Ukraine destroying the oil and gas industry. That will affect Russians' daily lives as well.
Just finally, General, there is a certain irony that we're having this conversation as world leaders are gathering in Normandy for the 80th anniversary commemorations of Operation Overlord, of D-Day, of course. And I just wonder what lessons we should be drawing from the events of the Second World War, particularly amid heightened speculation that we are on course at some point for a third.
So, three things come to mind immediately, and thanks for bringing that up, James. First of all, clear-eyed, courageous, strategic leadership. Leaders that can know that in conditions of uncertainty, they understand what is at stake. That what happens if we lose, everything we care about, what the price of that failure is, and I think that's missing today. And it's not like we're stupider or more stupid than we were back in 1944. We're not as courageous as we were back in 1944. We've lost confidence in ourselves and in our institutions, and we've allowed Russia to influence how we think, and now we're terrified that they might do something that they're actually not going to do. So that's the first thing. The second thing, of course, is the scale required to defend what we say is so important in terms of our defense industries, ammunition production, ships, planes, all the stuff that's needed to take advantage of new technologies that are out there on a scale that's necessary to defeat Russia, isolate Iran, deter North Korea, and deter China. I mean, that's the strategic problem set we have, and all of those are connected. These are not four separate small problems. All of these are connected in such a way that we have to show that we have the political will, the industrial capacity, and military capability to do all those tasks. Defeat Russia first, isolate Iran, which will happen once Russia has been defeated, deter North Korea, and deter China from making a terrible decision. And then the third and final thing, of course, is quality women and men in uniform and in all of our services. It doesn't matter what your technology is if you don't have committed, trained, disciplined women and men serving in uniform to perform all those tasks with whatever technology our governments provide to them. I mean, think about Russia's inability to exploit the 6-month window in which no U.S. aid was forthcoming and Europe did not step up to fill that gap. So almost half a year, and Russia was not able to really exploit that in any meaningful way. They've barely moved beyond Avdiivka or Bakhmut, and they're not going to be able to capture Kharkiv or overrun the Ukrainian defenses around there. Now, to be clear, it's hell for civilians that live in Kharkiv, and it's very difficult for Ukrainian troops that are getting pounded by Russian artillery. But the fact is, Russia does not have the ability to overrun or knock out Ukraine. And so if we had been providing everything that was needed for Ukraine to win versus providing them just enough to keep them in the fight, I think we would see significant losses, even more significant losses of Russian military capability. General Cavoli said, you can defeat mass, which is Russia's only advantage. You can defeat mass with precision by going after headquarters, logistics, and artillery. And we did not provide that to the Ukrainians as we should have.
Thank you for watching Frontline for Times Radio. For more on global security and the war in Ukraine, you can listen to Times Radio, take out a digital subscription to the Times, and click subscribe on our YouTube channel.